My Pittsburgh Penguins lost last night. I'm destroyed. I'm heartbroken. I'm upset, and it's first world problems. But you know what? Judge me if you want. I'm upset, Kyle.
Get it? I get it. It's how I feel when the Panthers lose.
And this is Mr. Kyle King, who hangs out with us as well on the month in review. So, if you're catching us for the first time, we are on YouTube Thursday nights, usually 6:15 or so thereafter, where you can join us and connect with us and talk with us while the show. We like to have that happen. This is where you get insights and blow up stereotypes and myths about mental health. And while you're in your car, personal time in your home, but knowing it's not the delivery of therapy services in any way. Kyle, would you like to deliver therapy services? I've never asked you before.
Probably not. I'm better on the technical side.
You're better on a computer. Neil, I know that you can do it.
Yeah, I can tell people what to do.
Okay, maybe not. Maybe, 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 maybe time out on that. It's not the way it works. All right, we ask you to click subscribe. I like the videos. That all helps a whole lot. We are pushing for more YouTube videos, more YouTube people. I'm getting into a little bit of a routine now that I've found all your comments and things on YouTube. My apologies. I want to respond to everybody, every comment, everything that we get. I did not do that successfully the last several months, but I'm on it, getting some routines down so that I can do that. Please know that if I missed you, it was coming. I got all the way caught up to like a couple few months ago though, so only the really old ones that I already neglected, I've caught up on. Um, the other thing that I really want to point out as well is that I've been kind of doing a little bit of extra work on the website. So please know that if you go to throughatherapisteyes.com and you like a particular show that we've done or a particular topic, I'm kind of being careful about putting a lot of links on there. Links to previous shows that we do will always be on there every week. We have a couple of research article or two that's kind of boring, but for those of you that are weird like me, might like to read some of those things, and then pertinent things to the particular episode, how to find the guests, or usually have my book Through a Therapist Eyes on marriage or on self. So I'm kind of really trying to be a little bit thorough on Through a Therapist's Eyes. So it'll help you kind of click with some other shows that you're interested in that are similar, because we've got 355 shows. That's not nothing. So just be aware of that. Look, we are licensed clinical therapists doing real clinical work every day, and this is where we actually talk about what actually helps. We do the work all day long, and we want to, through a therapist's eyes, come along with you to help you see what we see in this field. So contact at throughatherapisteyes.com is a great way to email us, to connect with us, to talk with us. If you make your subscription to YouTube public, we'll give you a shout out on the show. We're pushing up to close to half 1,000. We need 1,000. We're looking for 1,000. So please, really, refer to a friend. Tell a friend about us. They will listen to you. They won't just find us, but they will listen to you. That's your job as we do our job. Thanks for that. Month in review. How did we have 4 shows? I don't even understand what happened. It was a lot of weeks or something.
Yeah, there were five. There were 5 Thursdays this month. So
Okay. Yeah. That's a lot
that's
of
why.
Thursdays. So we got a lot to get to. Boy, a couple of weird shows though. Maybe I'll try to do another country roads overview while I talk about my dear sweet dog Sadie that is no longer with us. That was a great show on grief. We'll get to that, but I feel like it's been an interesting month this month through a therapist size. Kyle, we start the month in review with a little fun tradition of down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
It is something mental health related in some way. A question is a part of it, or a thought is a part of it, observations are a part of it. We like to kind of live in the world that you live in. And so when you're living in the world, Kyle looks at the world you, I, and we are living in and finds crazy, weird things sometimes. So we're going to go down the rabbit hole with Mr. Kyle King. What you got, man?
Well, you know the kind of month I've had. So, and I know one of the shows is going to be tied to this particular subject. And I actually saw this happen firsthand, and I kind of knew it, but I really didn't. Just kind of, yeah, I really didn't understand all the ins and outs of it. But it was how animals, such as dogs or cats, So I'm not a cat person. I'll just go ahead and preface that. I'm a dog
Okay.
person. So
Okay.
this is neither the which is better. This is, but it's just kind of led
Down
me
the
down the
rabbit hole
rabbit
with Kyle
hole.
King. Piss off all
Yeah.
the cat people.
Well, you know how animals can help you through times of grief, and yeah, it's so you know personal story. I lost my dad this month, and my mother came to stay with me for a little while, and during that time, obviously she's upset. I watched my three dogs just love on her. She would be upset, and they would just notice and run right over to her. So it just got me kind of curious. Is like, okay, how do they know this? And then of course I'm like, okay, now I'm curious. It's like, okay, well, how do cats do this? I mean, if dogs do this, what do cats do? But so dogs are very touchy feely. So when they see someone upset, what they're going to do is they're going to go over to them. They're going to try to get someone to pet them. They're going to try to maybe lick them. They're going to sit right beside them, be really close into that person. But where a cat comes in different, they notice and they pick up on it, but they're kind of, and there's studies that have been done with this, but they're not as touchy feely sometimes as a dog would be.
Yeah,
And
cats are
of
weird.
course, it's all about the owners and how they were raised and all that kind of stuff. I get that, but it's cats could do something as simple as being near and purring, where dogs are they're wanting to comfort be that comfort person. The one thing I did find interesting is that through this looking into this, if you take a look at a dog can actually you they're more involved. Cats kind of self-sufficient if you think about it.
Mm.
They can be. But a dog, they're very needy. They have routines. They like to, go on walks. They like to play. They're on schedule. Mine are definitely on a schedule for food, I can tell you that. And if you don't feed them on time, they will tell you about it.
Yes.
But what that creates is that it creates a change in your grief process, because you're responsible for that dog, and that now you have something to do. So it really changes the way you can handle or way you process grief when you're knowing I have responsibilities to take care of. So the dog kind of actually gets you back into that normal routine where a cat can, but the cat's more, self-sufficient. And I just found it very interesting, you know, because that dog, I mean, with my mom, I mean, oh my gosh, they loved on her. They just whined on her. I mean, just laid right beside her, made sure that she was, taken care of. And it was a very heavy attachment to her when as she was going through the process of grief. And so that's why for them, it's like, okay, let me touch you. You touch me. Let me take something off of you. That's what the dog is kind of saying. Where the cat says, I'm here. If you need me, I'll just purr. I'll be love on you. I'll rub up on you and all that kind of stuff. But I'm still here. And there's a lot more to this, that I found out with this, but this is just scratching the surface of it a little bit. But I found it
You think?
interesting. It's like, yeah, I found it interesting, especially the month we've had, Chris, is like
Yeah.
very, very, yeah. And thankfully, my mom has a dog that is keeping her busy and offering that companionship right now.
Well, let me tell you what I'm doing right now, Kyle. Um, we all got computers in front of our face and doing the things that we do. This is episode 356. Don't hold me to the title, but the title will be something along the lines of what I'm typing right now. How pets are a part of our grieving responses and process. That's going to be episode 356, brother.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and a little layered if you're catching the show, as far as month in review goes for the Through a Therapist Eyes family. Um, Kyle, has been just a lot of that. I mean, yeah, we've all had a heck of a month with grief. It's just been all over us. I mean, I lost my dog Sadie and had to bury her for the first time. Burying a dog. We cremated our first loss. Your very painful loss of your dad. And dude, I'm glad you're showing up. You look good. You look good with that hair out there in the woods.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Uh, I'm glad you're recovering, and I know that it's a recovering because it's a grieving process. My personal trainer, shout out to Jake, my boy. I can't imagine. Um, well, I don't know what I want to share on podcast for him or not, so I'll just say that he lost his dad too, and he was involved in CPR, which I can't imagine, what that would be like. And then John Pope as well, on through a therapistized tribe, went through the death of his 99-year-old dad and survived by his mom also, Kyle. Uh,
Wow.
and and so we're gonna do a whole show on this rabbit hole, man. We really are because John is a little bit of an expert, kind of as well, in the sense that, and he and his wife were on the show a long time ago with Bob the dog. So Bob the dog is his wife's service animal because she has some medical conditions that are pretty debilitating and chronic. And that dog is amazing, Kyle. Absolutely amazing. So when you say that dogs tune into our emotion and they change and are a part of our grieving process, I mean, they know exactly what's going on, like to the point of smelling your hormone levels dropping. Okay.
Yeah, they can definitely detect it, and that's one of the things I found out is like how sensitive they are, especially hound dogs. I mean hound dogs, which is what I got. They're very sensitive to smells, so they can detect anything, and so they can detect those hormone levels, like you said, the anxiety levels that you are, but then they can also you know
Yeah.
bring those levels down too, just with the calming effect.
Now, what I'm interested in this rabbit hole actually is, boy, this is probably the most serious rabbit hole we've ever had, Neil.
It definitely is.
Far cry from night fighting or something. Kyle, you got to dial it down on the seriousness element. You're bringing some
I kind
heat.
of I kind of figured it's like it'd tie in perfectly this week.
Yes, it would. Because I'm curious what you found, though. I'm completely ignorant about the cat's land. Like, I'm a dog dude, too. I'm not really a cat guy. I wouldn't think that they would be as in tune. Of course, all animals kind of sense their surroundings and have a limbic system, just like that's part of living. That's the amygdala and the emotion center. I mean, they all animals. I think it's fair to say, actually, most, if not all, animals have that. But well, what about cats? Do they tune into us like that? I don't think they would.
Believe it or not, they actually do. And
Really?
again, I do think it goes back to personal opinion of how a dog or cat is raised with a human. What kind of connection there is. Obviously, if there's some abuse or anything like that going on, I can see it. You know, not being the case. But if there is that connection, they do pick up on the changes. It's more subtle than for a cat than a dog, but yeah, they do pick up on it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I am. I guess I'm gonna. We have a lot to get to, so I'm gonna cut this one short to say thank you, Kyle. First of all, again for being here, and my condolences once again for your dad. I know we've been talking
Thanks.
this week a little bit. Um, yeah, no, we're going to do a whole show on this topic. It's that good of a rabbit hole for sure, and um, I'm really curious what John's going to say about this type of stuff, and so we'll go deep on the dog side of grief. How about that?
That'll work.
Yeah. All right. Let's do that. Thank you for that. I'm not trying to cut it short, but I just decided we'll do a whole show, and I think that's a good way to go. So let's get into the shows that we had this week, this month. Gosh, Lee, a lot of stuff was going on. We've had just a lot of information in these episodes and really personal felt stories, and Kyle's joining in that party. So episode 351, we did chronic stress, hypervigilance, stuck in survival mode, how movement resets the nervous system. So Neil, we had our lady come back. What'd you think about that, Miss Donahue?
I think it was great. The fact that she got you to like do up and get stand up and do like a yoga was kind of crazy.
She did. She did. Doing it. Throw the volcano.
No, I think she was very keen on really helping us understand, where the movement becomes really vital. And I think it goes back to a lot of stuff I know Kyle teaches his workout classes at the Y, and we've talked to before about how those movement things, like stuff like that, changes everything about your mood, what's going on. Even Kyle being outside right now, just it's a difference, right? So it was really really great to hear her talk about it, and interesting how she applied that to when she was in the education system. She had the one kid who was kind of going kind of crazy. He's like, "Yeah, we'll move the basket to the other end of the hall. All right, now bring it back, and then move the basket." And like just
Yeah,
the fact
she
that they
told a
made that
story.
kid move was what changed the whole scenario with that child, because they physically got up and they did things right. That's the power of movement.
And I can tell you, Kyle, I have really found that for any therapists that are listening to this show, I mean, you have got to be diligent about that. I just Thursdays today, I have a 1 o'clock virtual session, a 2 o'clock virtual session, and a 3 o'clock virtual session. And I made the mistake of sitting at my chair and my desk for all three sessions and all three progress notes without standing up. How do you think, Kyle, I felt by the end of that day?
Oh, I couldn't do that. There's just absolutely no way.
Yeah.
I am really bad about, and this is just me. When I'm on a when I am on a call for a meeting at work, I walk, I pace,
Mm-hmm.
and I do this for multiple factors because I don't like to, just to your point, I really don't like sitting still that long. But secondly, is if I sit down, I'm going to multitask, and so
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna try to do 10 different things at the same time. I'm trying to listen to this conversation and provide productive feedback. So that's just me. I never like to sit still. So I know exactly how you felt.
Yeah. It was terrible. I mean, I honestly, I learned the value in this virtual world that we live in about doing a 50 to 55-minute long therapy session and then greeting someone goodbye, coming back to my office, sitting down, doing a note, standing back up, going to check to the next client, and then bringing them back. That little interlude, oh my gosh, it makes the biggest difference in the world. I do not understand how people have full down, sit down jobs all day long behind a computer or in a cubicle. Or you've got to get up and move. And Lisa
Well,
taught us that.
and I think that's where a lot of I know a lot of people in that I work with, they have stand up desks and then they have walking pads underneath those desks.
Yeah.
So, and you'll see them and they're just kind of walking along, and but it's they're doing something in addition, to doing work, which can help as well. But for me, I've got to get out. I've got to go outside, go play golf, or I got to do my workout classes. Got to do something to break that monotony up.
Hmm. So the questions during episode 351 that we asked you to think about. See, we have questions in the beginning of the show and let you kind of listen to and think about it through the show. We asked you to think about, why does the body sometimes stay in survival mode even when we are no longer in danger? What are the signs that chronic stress has turned into hypervigilance? And what actually helps the nervous system move from the survival mode back to regulation? Now, I just mentioned survival mode in that those questions several times. Survival mode is an interesting thing. We just don't have time to spend on it today, and I usually lose people when I try to describe what happens with people in our psychological systems when we have regular chronic stress or things around us that trip us out or wear us out, like a kid in an alcoholic dysfunctional family system. There's always problems or things coming up. They get incredibly street smart, but they just don't have the ability to sit back and really process through the things that are happening in an event or in their week or in their month, and they just kind of move on to the next one. And people in military or police officers are stuck in survivor mode. They're constantly, trauma is turning on their emotional systems and stuff. So survival mode basically is kind of just, just that, getting stuck in a logical head first framework and not really even understanding what your emotion is. It doesn't work very well when you're so compartmentalized that way. So then we all can be there, you know. uh Neil, I know you've heard about it before, but real brief. I mean, does this survivor mode kind of concept, is that weird concept, Kyle, from your real world ears?
No, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, it reminds me of like a washing machine, right? You're always stuck in the wash cycle. You never get to the rinse cycle. And so it's really kind of, if you want to put it in kind of an analogy behind it, it's like you're always drowning and
Mm.
you can never come up for air.
Well, and what's interesting about it, I love the metaphor, and I'm going to use it, but because I'm going to steal that from you, it is like a washing machine. You're stuck in wash mode and never really able to kind of rinse that out. But the thing is crazy about it is oftentimes people don't know it. Like they don't even know they're in that sort of boxed in
Yeah.
state.
Because they're all, because they're in that vicious cycle and
Yeah.
they just never, it's just part of their natural, daily life. I mean, to them, it's just like breathing. And they can never take a moment to understand like what this is really doing to my life, how it's impacting my life, how it's impacting my mental state or anything.
Neil, you love to say rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Exactly. And if you can't get to the rinse, you can't repeat, right?
Mm-hmm. And it gets into a chronic state where you enter in, and Lisa talked about Lisa Donahue, by the way, is fantastic. Uh, Neil, I don't have it in front of me. I didn't put it on our show notes, so I want to do her justice and look up the other show notes and give her a little intro and stuff. I want to make sure that we get that out since we're talking about her content and stuff. I mean, she talked about hypervigilance, right? Where you're in the survival mode. It's kind of really chronic. Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat. You're always stuck in the wash cycle. These are great metaphors. The actual signs that I want you to understand that this might be you is when you have a difficult time relaxing, like more so than typical. Not like Kyle's tendency to multitask, right? We're talking about like you really don't relax well. Um, you'll find yourself being irritable. You'll find yourself with sleep disruption and overanalyzing things. Hypervigilance is thinking about and avoiding things that make you feel upset about or trigger you. You assume danger is around the corner. You just know that there's going to be conflict if I bring something up to my husband, or right, or my emotions get upside down, up and down. They're very reactive. Like these, this is a way that combination of all of those things is the way that you end up falling into when this is an issue for you, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. And we said a lot, I think this last show that we talked about, what gives you peace. And we talked about, being able to sleep at night, those kinds of things. But if you're in that mode, you're not going to get that peace.
Right. And I'm just pausing to really like look at like making the point that you might be listening to us and you might be thinking, especially if you're in survivor mode, yeah, I don't get that. Doesn't apply to me. I don't really even identify that list that you just read off. But I want to caution you to stop, pause, and think for a minute because the reality of it is if you're in this, you typically do not realize that you're in this and you think that you're handling things well because you're on top of things all the time. Like you're the first person to see what dangerous figure just came into the room. You're the first person to decide what needs to happen in triage at a car wreck. You're the first in line for when something needs to be taken care of. Now, it all looks great, but that's you because you're always ready for it too. Now, I'm saying the word always, temper that a little bit because permanency words tend not to make a lot of sense sometimes. I know that you can relax, but how easy is it to really just put the whole world down and just chill into your own space? Some people really struggle with that, Neil.
The one thing I got from Lisa, which I thought was hilarious, was she said that watching TV wasn't relaxing.
I know.
Which goes back to you guys, you watching your Penguins. How relaxing was you watching the Penguins game? Like, were you really relaxed? Is that really relaxing to you? I just thought
I
that
was
was
not relaxed at all. I was highly stressed out, but the world did not exist besides who is going to score the first goal to win this game and extend it to game seven. So, yeah, a good point, but it
but the
definitely takes everything else away.
the other thing that's interesting too, right? When you're in that hypervigilance, right? You go past the thing of the chronic stress because that's the buildup, right? You get to the hypervigilance. Now, the interesting part to me is when you get out of that hypervigilant state, when you do movement to kind of help regulate yourself, it's that relief.
Yeah.
It's that's the part. If you go through emotion and you feel relieved, or you feel like, wait, it's like, I don't know if you guys ever had like an injury, a back, a knee, whatever it is, right? And then all of a sudden you get up one day and it's like, wait, I don't hurt. Like, what the heck is that, right? It's weird because you've lived with the pain for so long, especially as we get
Mm.
older. Our injuries are like, instead of being like, I'm sore for an afternoon, it's like now it's like a week. That's the difference, right? With hypervigilance, you're in that state and you get used to that pain. And then when it finally goes away and you learn to regulate yourself, it's an unknown situation you're not used to. But when you feel it and you notice it, that's when you realize, hey, something was wrong. Like you said before, when you're in the middle of it, you don't realize you're really doing it until you're out of it.
And you say regulate, that's a word that's used a lot. Let's de-escalate our emotions. Let's regulate our systems. Let's be mindful in the moment. Those are all good phrases. I just don't know that people understand, the real world ways that Lisa taught us and was talking about, you know, how to really do that. Give her demos here in a second, Neil, by the way, before we forget. But the slow breathing, the movement that I just talked about, even those 3, 4 minutes between sessions, 2 minutes doing a progress note, greeting someone goodbye, greeting someone hello. It's huge in the way that it changes my day. Stretching, you know, I will do some of those movements that she had me up and doing. Back here in the background, she had me doing a tornado and a volcano and different things that were really cool. But just basic stretching, or push ups for on a bench or even on the ground, walking. Kyle, you just said you walk all the time when you're on the phone. Grounding exercises and rhythmic movements. These are really important ways that, honestly, that what they're doing is they're literally teaching your body, hey, calm down, stop working so hard, chill out, reset. Okay, go. Right?
I equate that to so much like someone who has ADD and they get their first dose of like Ritalin and their brain
Mm.
can finally slow down, right? It's that. So the movements are like that medication for your body, right? When you kick those in, it's not going to solve your problem, but it's going to slow things down enough that you can now you can regulate it. Like I said, I kind of it's like if you're in a car and you're going 100 miles an hour, you're not going to stop or make that left hand turn. Now, if you apply the brakes and give yourself down to a controllable speed, now you can go left and right, you can change lanes, right? So that's the goal, is these exercises allow you to go from this hyper vigilant to, oh wait, I can process some stuff, I can look at this, I can, oh, now I'm breathing, and now I can, oh, let me control what I have going on. So that's the part of that you're looking at, is you're getting your body to a point where it's no longer in this uncontrollable state, that you can actually get to the point where you can dictate the next step or regulate what you feel and how you process and what you think. That becomes super, super critical. By the way, Lisa, if you want to reach out to her, it's createcalm.org. That's her website. If you want to look her up and see what's going on, createcalm.org.
She's done a
Eh,
lot. Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
No, I was going to say, when you were saying talking about sitting in those meetings for 3 straight hours, for
Mm.
me, I would get antsy, and the reason why I would get antsy is because I'm not in control of those situations to some degree, because there's other people involved, and once I finally finish, and we're talking about getting up and moving around, doing some stretches, whatever, that I'm in control of, and that allows me to reset. So yeah, to your point, Neil, that's exactly how I would feel.
So one of the things we do on a show is we take turns and we offer you practical questions about what it is that we're talking about, sort of as us being a therapist in the real time, in the real moment with you. And I'm going to carry that on to when we do a review of the show. And so this is a practical question that I have for you, the listener, right? Thinking about this issue of hypervigilance and survival mode and de-escalating, like what do we do, with these process of chronic stress, and we're all stressed out all the time. Like, I want you to think about for a moment, like, what do you try to think of your way out? Like, what do you try to do that's just in your mind? I'm sure that you have mental tricks and mental games and distraction techniques, and all of those things are wonderful. But do you try to think your way out of stress instead of actually regulating what your body is doing first. Because what happens with your body is it gets into this hypervigilant state. Again, a lot of times you don't even know it, but your body is releasing cortisol and cortisone and these chemicals that help you, like adrenaline, that help you deal with the crisis situation, oftentimes when there's not really a crisis. So if you just try to distract yourself or think through this stuff, it is going to be really hard to do prior to actually de escalating your real body so that you tell your body to relax, tell your body to kind of chill out. Do you try to think your way out or do you understand that you have to take your body first? Right? Make sense?
Yep.
Yep. All right. Well, Lisa, that was the second time that Lisa Donahue was on our show. So we appreciate her coming back. And Lisa, shout out to you. We'll move on to episode 352. This is the good one, Kyle. Yikes. Grief and resilience, holding on, letting go, and healing through loss. And next week, we're going to talk about how dogs are a part of that. What a awesome concept. I can't wait to talk to John about that. Three questions. What losses in your life am I still carrying? I'm sorry. What losses in my life am I still carrying that may need more space or compassion? A lot of times we don't completely deal with the loss. We just move on. When we get another loss, we feel the first loss and the second loss, and we do that again, and we end up feeling the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and the sixth loss when we have the seventh loss. That's a bad process, by the way. All right, question number two. How has grief shaped who you are today, both in painful and in meaningful ways? And what does resilience actually look like when someone is grieving? What does it look like to be resilient? Kyle, I think you're a pretty open guy, so I feel comfortable. I haven't prepared this for you, but I'm curious if you and I maybe can talk about, like, you know, you just had a huge loss, right? I mean, losing a dad is not a simple thing. It's a very powerful, visceral, and real experience existentially to feel the the support that a mother and father gives you. You may not have supportive parents, but there's an inherent support in your life listening that someone that had a part in creating you has. And when they die, and then if they are a supportive, encouraging, healthy person that's a regular part of your life, it's it's a different kind of loss. I mean, I'm not trying to minimize losing my sweet Sadie dog. Sadie Grace is a wonderful dog. She's a wonderful companion. I've had her for a lot of years, but she didn't have a hand in my life the way that dads do, or moms, but in your case, dad. So I'm curious to maybe park out for just a moment. Like, how does that grief shape who you are a couple weeks later in
Oof.
painful or meaningful ways?
Uh, you know, big question, but good question. It's tough. Because there are times that I talk to my dad a lot, and there are a lot of times that I'm still going through the grieving process because I want to reach out to him and talk to him about things, and I
All
can't.
right.
Right. So, um, you know, because I always talk to him, especially after I come off the golf course or anything like that. I'd call him on certain days, and I just wouldn't be able. I'm not able to do that anymore, and that hurts. Um, but on the upside, something that helped me, and this is just me personally. I'm not going to say it helps everybody. One of the things I did is I gave a eulogy
Oh man.
at his funeral.
Yeah.
Um, the one thing I did not want, because I know my dad. Trust me, he was very much a jokester. He would try to make light of any situation. So one thing that I'm glad I did it because it helped me put in perspective, and I got to say goodbye to him in a way that I think he would appreciate it. I kept it light, and we had some jokes, we told some stories, we had some laughs. Um, during the funeral, and but it was still amazing to see the amount of people that came out and supported the family, and say goodbye to him. Um, but it was that it was huge. It was huge,
Shapes
but
you in a lot of ways. It is a
it
big part.
does. It does because, you know, I said in the eulogy, my dad was always wanted to be there. He never missed a game. He never missed a church event, a school event. He was always there. You know, he's at my, best man at my wedding. Those kinds of things. These are the things that I always carry with me, and these are the good memories that I have to carry with me. But it does. It's another part of the story that you don't know. So 26 years ago, I lost my brother at 14 to cancer.
Oh wow.
So, between, him and then my dad, it brought up memories of him too,
Mm-hmm.
because I was there when both of them passed by their bedside. So
Wow.
it's tough. And it's really even tougher when you had to make the decision that, okay, dad would not want to live on machines.
Right.
So, that makes it extra tough. That it's like, here's a man that I don't want to see go anywhere, but he wouldn't want that.
Right.
So yeah, it's been a challenge, especially after the fact.
Yeah, and I think the beauty of that is it keeps shaping you even as you go forward. I mean, I was bedside when my grandma died. That was the first important person in my life that died, and I thought it was beautiful. I am so glad that I was there.
Yeah,
And the only other experience that I had is just a few weeks ago when Sadie died. Me and my son were there for her last breath,
yeah,
and it was just a surreal moment, just a beautiful moment. And I was so proud of my son being able to be there with me. And when my grandma died, my mom, my sister, and my brother, and I was actually at the foot of the bed. We were all there together, and
yeah.
so it keeps on. I appreciate you talking. I know words are hard to say, aren't they?
It can get deep. It is.
Yeah, and it's funny you can feel things and you keep it together with her, but I don't know what it is
Yeah,
about speaking words, man. You start speaking words, it's like I crack out.
yeah,
I
yeah,
fully plan on speaking at my mom's funeral. She's in dementia care, and I have such a strong feeling about her. She's my rock. She's a lot to me. She talk about meaning, man. She has a whole lot of meaning, and I have so much that I want to say about her. I don't know how I
yeah.
can even speak.
Well, and that was
Oh,
just, that was exactly the thing. There was so much. I probably could have talked for an hour, but I kept it down. But it was funny, Chris. I mean, here you are doing this show, and I text you about my dad
oh, that
passing
was
away.
crazy. I
I mean,
know.
it was just, I mean, I don't know, it was purely coincidental. But the
Can't be.
timing was unreal.
Yeah. What Kyle's referring to is when we were doing this episode 352 that we're on here, we were literally recording the show, and Kyle texts me that this happened in the moment that it happened with his dad. And by the way, Kyle, publicly, I'll say I'm very honored to be for you to even think of us or me or whatever was really special to me, and I appreciated that, and hopefully we were helpful to you. But yeah, it was like literally in the middle of the episode. Call that a coincidence. I'm gonna choose to believe it's more than a coincidence.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah, totally agree.
Um,
You know how I feel about that.
yeah, indeed. Neil, what's your thoughts here? I just want to bring you in a little bit and see kind of what you were thinking about all this and what you're observing.
Well, see, my wife lost her aunt back in December, and as we do the shows, like they'll talk to people about her art and be like, her the series of for her the birds she's been drawing. She started those because of her aunt, and there were many times she's talking to the people, and then like she just has to stop. So even 4 months later, because her aunt was like a second mother to her. They always hung out. She lived at her house for a while. Like it's so that's a relationship that, as grieving is concerned, you're always going to go through flows. You're going to see things that remind you, and it's just like it's always harder. And we're supposed to do a service for her in a couple weeks because we waited because it was cold, and it'll be intriguing to see what kind of closure that gives. But it's every person in your relationship, you're going to grieve differently when you lose them, whether that's based on your relationship, how close you guys were, all of those different things. It's just an interesting dynamic because I mean, Chris, I saw you when your father passed recently, and now I see how Kyle is this completely different dynamics because of the difference in the relationships. And
Mm.
it's okay to have, even if, once again, we talked about in the grief show, some people say, well, I cry all the time. Is that okay? Yes. I don't cry. Is that okay? Yes. I do this. Is that like your grieving is your grieving? And so I think that's the biggest part about this, that it takes time. And once again, I go back to the same thing that Victoria said. Grief is always going to be there. It's just how much you grow around it. That's the biggest part that people have to understand. You're not trying to get rid of your grief. You're just growing around it to be stronger, how to handle it. Every time you do it, it hurts a little less. Not because it's less painful, because I think people do think that, hey, I'm not grieving anymore. Am I disrespecting the person? No, you're growing into a bigger person, and it just that's just how it is, right? And so that's the interesting part about this. So
It was wild, Kyle. I didn't understand this, man. On the show, episode after episode, we do a shrink wrap up, and all of us take turns, reviewing the show and talking about what stuck out to us and what the takeaway might be and how things go. And I mean, I'm sitting there, my dog died. I'm sharing my grief. I think even squirted a tear or two out there. I had a West Virginia country roads song overplay, and I tried to speak, and I guess I didn't speak a lot, but thought it was a win, man. He just invoked Victoria again. Victoria got the dub.
the
I
the,
t-
uh, the audio quality wasn't there, Chris. I would have given it to you, but the audio quality wasn't there.
Fair enough, noted.
well, I will tell you, and Neil, I think you made a good point because, um, you're talking about growing around things, and one of the things I learned through the process of talking with people, and his neighbors were very fond of him, and one of the reasons why is, and even their daughter was more fond of them because she had grown up living across from them for 35, 36 years. And during some of the storytelling, that I've had with folks and their neighbors while I'm staying at my mom's, the story came across as, yeah, my daughter wanted to be a Turner, which that was his name, Turner. And I'm like, huh? I'm like, what are you talking about, a Turner? She's like, I always want to grow to be a Turner. And it's just, and so Neil, I'm tying this in because that was actually how it was a rally cry for everybody to go out there and be a Turner. And it was, hey, look, yes, this is hard, but here's the legacy that he brought to the table, which was always being there, always lend a helping hand, no matter what. No matter, get outside, smell the roses, be a fierce friend, love the Lord. And it just, the list went on and on. But that's what it meant to be a Turner, to live outside the grief, go share his legacy instead.
Yeah. No, I appreciate Kyle you sharing, and I wish I had had the honor and privilege of meeting your dad. I have not met him, but some of talking to you and hearing some things, he really sounds like a man to meet. Is the phrase that comes to my mind, and thank you also for demonstrating in real time what we talked about on the show to wrap this episode up. What resiliency actually looks like, because we talk about that word. I mean, it's starting to get into our culture, but we don't really sometimes know how to practice it. I hear people in therapy all the time. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do now? And when you're going through a heavy hit, man, the world stops for you. I mean, it keeps on going for everybody else. We were literally doing a show when Kyle's world stopped, dead in his tracks. There's nothing going on, and we're doing a show talking about grief and resiliency and stuff. So, getting out of bed on a hard day, that's being resilient. Letting yourself cry without shame. I make jokes a little bit, but I don't feel shameful about crying on air a little bit with my dog dying, or sometimes even in sessions if something is touching. Reaching out instead of isolating, that's a big part of what resiliency looks like. You know, saying even to yourself or out loud, look, this is hard, instead of pretending I'm fine, I'm good. We all want to appear strong, so to speak. We all want to appear like we got our stuff together, like we can be unrattled for some reason, especially in the American culture. I know this is with the Hispanic culture, Central America. I know the Germans have their stiff upper lip, or I'm sorry, the British, the Germans have their sort of stoicism sort of element. We all around the world, I think it's probably pretty common to think, I don't want to let them see us sweat. Now, that's more of an American term, right? But I, true resiliency is speaking the truth, Kyle, and what it is that you're demonstrating for us. I appreciate it because resiliency is built through small, little practical moments, repeated acts of compassion and self compassion and caring. And, I mean, giving a eulogy is, God, that's for your own dad brother, that's resilient in action. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, this episode wasn't even together me. I don't even have a practical question because I wasn't right in my head. I didn't do the show notes. I don't know what. I could probably
Yeah,
make it
this
up
was
pretty
Casey's
easily.
one, right?
What's that?
Casey did the show notes for
She
this one,
did.
right? She did that.
Yeah,
But I think
yeah,
that, like, when I was doing the shorts, or you recommended the shorts, the one thing that she also, because I'll watch the shorts when they come back up, obviously want to get the stats stuff. But the
yeah.
one thing she also said is you need to be okay with finding joy after the loss and the grief, because there's a lot of people who feel bad because they become happy in moments, or they find joy in moments, and that's another sign of resilience for her. That is basically finding joy in your life, right? So that's I because you talk about crying, and it's okay to cry, get out, but it's also okay to find joy and happiness, happy thoughts, living your life and being happy in those moments. It's just the way things are. So I want to make sure that we emphasize that when it comes to resiliency. When you lose something, it's okay to be happy afterwards. It's okay to find joy afterwards, because that also helps you get back to normalcy. It helps you get to where you want to go.
Kids
So
are amazingly resilient in the sense that I like to say is they're so emotionally present. Probably somewhat, Kyle, like dogs. To be honest with you, dogs are not as cognition. They're more emotionally experiencing, and kids are like that. Man, they might be crying a puddle on 1 minute, and then the next minute they're laughing their ass off, going around playing kickball. I mean, it's absolutely delightful and delightful resiliency. Um,
Until something Neil said, I've seen a lot of people when they lose someone that's very, very close to them, and it's kind of almost like they retreat into where they can't be happy, where they struggle to find happiness. There may be moments that they see a happiness, but they struggle. And I go back to always thinking, just like my dad and a very good friend of mine that passed away several years ago, if they were here, they would want us to be happy. They would want us to laugh. They would want us to smile. They would not want us to retreat back into a shell and not have that happiness. They'd want us to savor every moment. And I think everybody should keep those kinds of things in mind, because if they were here, they would make sure you were happy.
Sounds like you might be talking about a certain parent figure, brother.
Maybe a little.
Yeah, I love that, and the points are strong, and I've heard many people say, like, hey, when I die, man, I want you to have a party on my funeral. I don't want you to be all, sad and whatever, but we're gonna feel sad. We're gonna be upset, and that's kind of normal as well. Dang it, I'm not finding it quickly enough. I'll get off this episode and go to the next one, but I wanted to kind of send you to our website and hit you with. Oh, maybe I didn't search it yet. I think that's what happened. I didn't search it. There we go. Awesome. Um, Love and logic is something I always mention about the process of how to deal with a parent-child relationship, and we're talking about that next show, episode 353, and Love and Logic is episode 15. So that's going all the way back to the beginning where we talked about, a standard stat point of how to deal with kids. Why? Because episode 353 title was Millennial Parents Are Ditching These 11 Parenting Trends. Are they right? We had fun with this, I think, Neil. We're going to go very quickly through this because I want to get to the last show and save time for that. So we're going to spend only a couple minutes on it, but it was a fun show because I came just across an article and they were talking about all of these things that millennials are ditching like now in their parent-child relationship, and we were able to have Casey and Victoria comment on them last week. It was really fun to kind of go through the different realities of what the millennial parents, because they're growing up, y'all. We kicked at the millennials for years and years and years, and now they're growing up and having kids, and they're doing a good job, contrary to what we may have thought they were going to do. They're fine. Millennials are fine. Kyle, do you know that us Gen X parents messed the millennials up? Like, we're actually to blame. Did you
I
know
hadn't
that?
heard that. I had not heard that.
Dude, I tell you what, a client told me that. He's a millennial, and he said, Chris, we have fun in therapy, believe it or not. We laugh and have fun. So he looked at me dead in the eyes one day, and he said, Chris, I just want you to know something. I'm a millennial, and us millennials, all we wanted to do was play soccer. That, that's all we wanted to do. We just wanted to run around and play with our kids. And he looked at me, and he did this. He pointed at me. He's like, you all gave us those trophies. And I thought, I felt so convicted because I literally have stood up on High Five Sports where my kids were, and I was coaching, giving the best spinner in the outfield for little Sally, and then the best bench sitter for Johnny. I gave those trophies out, brother. Feel terrible, but I was just doing what I was told, right?
Exactly.
So, um, I want to rapid fire this so we can go to the next show. And here's the way I want to do with this. These are the actual 11 things that the article said the millennials are ditching. Kyle, I just want you to say, yes, I've heard of that as a trend, and I'm going to ditch it in a sentence about why. Let's rapid fire these, okay? We'll see what brilliant parenting ability and strategies you have. All right, ready?
Let's go.
Okay. Complicated chore charts.
I didn't know they were ditching it, but I could see that. I mean,
Yeah,
because you think about when we were kids, we got to do all this, do this, do this, do this before you could go outside.
right.
Yeah.
So, did you know this is a trend? And do you agree or disagree, and why? You already said why.
Uh, I didn't know it was a trend, but I don't necessarily agree with it because kids do, they do slack off and they need some
Oh wow.
responsibility. They need to keep their rooms clean, the basics. I'm not saying like, they need like 20 things they have to do, but there's, maybe
Let-
give them a handful of things
Let's see
they're
how this
responsible
goes,
for.
Neil. He might be a hard parent. He's going to keep the complicated chore charts. All right. Avoiding the word no. Millennials are saying, I'm not, I'm going to say no. They don't want to avoid the word no anymore. Did you know that's a trend? And do you agree why?
No, I didn't know that's a trend, but I think everybody should be told no. So,
He's going to keep that ditching.
yeah.
Number three, villainizing timeout. Did you know that people are now villainizing, or that they were villainizing timeout?
No, what are they replacing it with?
Good question. I guess you're going to join that party and ditch the
Yeah,
villainizing.
yeah. Go,
This is
tell
easy.
somebody. Tell somebody to go stand in the corner of a round room. Let's see what happens.
This one's easy. Number four. Did you know it was a trend to what helicopter parenting?
Oh, yeah. Is it? That's a
Yeah,
trend now.
it's a trend to ditch it, I guess. Or what
To,
was
to
that, Neil? I'm confused with myself. I didn't write enough on that one.
Yeah, so basically the idea is that you have a lot of these parents who do everything for their kids. They're always helping them. They're always getting them out of trouble. It goes back to the idea or the common joke about, the kid who goes to the job interview and his mom goes with him or his dad goes with him or it's that extent of the helicopter parenting, right?
Did you do that on purpose, man?
No, that's just the standard one that most
It,
people say like,
I
or
feel
like
like I was targeted there, Neil.
if
So
if you do something and it makes you feel guilty, then you probably shouldn't have done it.
Kyle, I shared on the show that I was that parent for my second kid. You have to listen to that episode. There's a
I have to.
reason behind it. There's some stuff there, but oh yes, you have to. You've gone to a
No,
job interview with your kid.
no. I have not
Oh,
done that. I'm one of these. Hey, teach a kid how to fish and let them. Yeah, that's
I
me.
understand. He was struggling. All right, I'm feeling weird. I need to move on. Number five, the trend that the millennials are kicking is turning kids' bedrooms into Instagram decor. Did you
Oh,
know that?
that's a trend.
Yeah,
That was a trend to begin with.
to turn it into like some crazy decorative. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I don't agree with that one in the first place. But kids these days are going to see something on social media anyway. They're going to. That's how they do it. So I can totally see it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't blame them for ditching that one.
Yeah, exactly. Hiding evidence that kids live in the house.
No, they're supposed to live in the house.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't know it was a trend either. I didn't know half of these things were a trend in parenting where you like have to have your house
No,
perfectly clean and whatever.
be
Like,
proud to have that you have kids. You have kids.
absolutely.
It's going to be dirty. You're going to
Listen,
have stuff everywhere.
it's a wreck. Just own it.
Yes,
It's a wreck.
exactly.
7 was a trend for over planning birthday parties.
Yeah, I've seen some very extravagant birthday parties,
You knew that was
and
a trend, yeah.
yeah, I knew that one. And I don't necessarily agree with that.
Ditching that one as
I don't
well.
think you need to spend $10,000 on a birthday party, right?
Ditching that one as well. I'll tell you what, I would have absolutely loved it if my parents would have done the Hall of Fame, the Hall of Justice rather. They had
Yeah,
the Hall of
see,
Justice and everyone came with their thing. Like as a kid, I'd be like,
right.
but go ahead and ditch that one for sure. Let me see. Buying parenting guides that promise solutions. That was a trend.
That was a trend.
That was a trend.
I don't blame them for ditching that one.
No,
Trust your instincts. Look, I mean, no, but we didn't have those guides back then.
no.
No,
Yeah.
our parents didn't have those guides.
Exactly. Trust your instincts. That's
Yeah.
actually one of the things that we landed on number 11. It was a trend to ignore parenting instincts. Don't do that, they said.
Oh, that was a trend to ignore
That was a
those.
trend.
Get rid
Oh,
of
no.
that. Trust your instincts. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. The practical question that I have for you listening to episode 354, Millennials Ditching These Trends, is, are you a parent based on what works for your family, or are you a parent based on pressure that you hear, trends that you see, things that you see on social media? And if we're being honest, if you're being honest, if we're all being honest, we live in a society that is advanced in technology rapidly, so rapidly we make our head spins and we cannot keep up. And so if you are able to base your parenting on what works for you and your family, then you also probably at the same time have pressure. And parent guilt is a thing. We've done shows on it before. Stop it. Stop shaming parents and doing what they're doing. And you, I hope, are you able to base what you do for what works or what's on pressure? It's a hard thing to be a parent. But let's move on before we're out of time to episode 354, New to Dating, from pandemic teens to midlife singles. Skills are most someone is new to dating. How has COVID disruption affected young people learning to socialize and date? Hint, a lot. And then 3, what similarities exist between teenagers entering the dating world and then adults, us, Kyle, our age, adults returning to dating later in life? Did you know there's similarities there?
I'm so glad I'm not in the dating world.
Be glad, brother.
I hear too many horror stories.
Man, I can't tell you how many times people have said that to me. With divorcing and all, and dating, and I'm sick of hearing that, but it's true. It's true. Neil, what'd you think about the dating show, bro?
I think with the dating show, the biggest key was just get out there, and I think that's kind of the start. Do the stuff you want to, make physical connections. Don't do the apps. Don't do those types of things. Like that was kind of the thing we kind of felt on, right? I think that goes
Mm-hmm.
back to like you said with the COVID teens, right? What happened with COVID? Everyone went back to their houses, and everyone had to talk through the technology, right? And I think that's where it's really hurt the COVID teens is, I mean, have you ever tried to watch a teenager actually like talk to someone or like confront someone or try something new in person? It's one of the most awkward. I feel awkward when I watch someone do that sometimes. Like I feel bad for them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that was
I
the
want
big
to
thing.
pause here a little bit and slow down because I think that when we're talking about dating, we really do need to pay attention to what happened with almost an entire cohort. because for 4, 5, 6 years, these kids were affected. Whether COVID happened in the 8th grade, 7th or 8th grade, everything shut down, and you were not prepared to enter into high school, or if it happened to you as a junior or senior in high school, you didn't get to capstone your experience. And I happen to feel the worst is actually when COVID hit for your freshman year. It's exactly the worst time because literally, like for that 7, 8 year pocket, that window, pushing 10 years, kids were affected in so many ways. And we are still, literally, still working out what it is like to be in that space. I mean, when you have not had a freshman year to be a high schooler and sophomore year as well, by the time you come back as a junior, you really don't even know how to be in high school. And what about the class of 2020 where you didn't have a graduation, you didn't have a prom, like no one did. The entire group doesn't understand what having a prom is. I mean, it was devastating, and I've seen that in my clients. I saw that in my personal children, and it's it's going to take a little while to dig out of the deficits that are there.
Yeah.
I think you're muted, Kyle.
Yeah, totally agree with that. I mean, I still see, kids that went through that, that were a part of high school. They all they know how to do is that technology. They text. They do some type of email. They don't know how it is like back in the day when we had to pick up the phone and you call the girl's house, and the dad answers, right, or the mom answers, and you have to talk to them first, and you have to properly introduce yourself, and you have to be cordial, and then if you pass the cordial test, then you can talk to the daughter, right?
Right.
You have to, but
Very.
they have to know who you are, full name, who's your parents, and all that kind of stuff before you can get to talk to the daughter.
And
They
you better
don't
say yes,
understand.
sir, and yes, ma'am.
That's right. And they don't, and the kids these days, doing it through the technology, they were able to hide. And once you get them in, I'm always a big fan of, personal interaction, getting out and meeting people, but they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to have a physical conversation, which is not only going to impact the dating life, it's also going to impact other parts of their life, their social life, their job life, all these kinds of, all these other aspects of, them growing up.
I really have thought a lot about this issue, but I haven't thought about it, ironically, in the combination of the two. First of all, item number one, what I believe to be the biggest challenge that humanity has faced in the history of humanity itself, that being the rapid change of technology paired with the COVID reality of not having those social experiments and experiences. Wow, that seriously is a hella combination.
Yeah,
Very big.
it's crazy to think about, and I still see a lot of people that have gone through that. A lot of young young people, I should say. Um, when they came out of it, they're very awkward when they meet somebody in person, and it's because they just didn't have that connection you know, with the group of teens like they would typically have. They didn't have, especially you were talking about being a freshman in high school. You know, high school is very cliquish anyway. You got these different groups, that you could be a part of, and they didn't have the chance to, get face to face with them. They had a Zoom session or they had a text session. That's all they got. They didn't, get to high five somebody after doing something good, or to make a joke, that where everybody was laughing,
Right.
hysterically in front of each other.
Right. Be
That's
present.
something they didn't get to experience.
Here's an
You know,
interesting thing. How many COVID kids missed getting a crush on their fourth grade teacher?
there you go, something like that,
Right.
right? Yeah.
You're not going to get
I,
a crush as a fourth grader on your cute teacher, over Zoom, are you?
no,
That'd be hard.
exactly. I mean, but those are the kinds of things they miss out on. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, if you think I'm in midlife and got all my stuff figured out, I would challenge you in this moment because, interestingly, adults return to dating after divorce or long relationships, and they're freaking out too, man. Their similar feelings are had. They don't know social skills. I can't tell you how many times people in therapy tell me I don't have friends and I don't know how to go make them. So, dating in midlife, you struggle just the same. I mean, you think you're all put together, but I tell you what, until the rubber meets the road and you got to go out there and hit on somebody for the first time, and you ain't done that for 15 years, 10, 15, 20 years, or 30 years, like your social confidence is struggles. The fear of rejection is real. And I know you're out there saying, "Oh, I don't care anymore. I don't have feelings." I don't buy that for a second. I'll be straight with you. Uncertainty about modern dating norms and what these apps are and the online culture and the vulnerability that is required to, as you said, Neil, put yourself out there. Dude, Neil, I don't think that we do very well as much as we think that we're prepared for it when we get ourselves into midlife dating. What say you?
Well, I think so. When a teen's dating, it's the unknown, right? Not knowing how to regulate. As an adult, and you've been through trauma, and you've gone through rejection, you know what that feels like. You know those pains, and now you're gonna go back into that thing, not from a series of unknown. Like I'm not really sure how this is gonna feel or act, but to know how it feels to be rejected, to know how it's felt like, oh, I just got divorced from my spouse, and now I have to have my baggage with me, right? There's all of this stuff that comes into it. So it's just as traumatic for a midlife person as it is a teenager, but it's a different type of anxiety.
I would
One
say
is the
probably
unknown,
with what you're
one is the
saying,
known.
even more.
Depending on the trauma you have, right? If this is your fourth marriage or fifth marriage, it's going to be different. Well, by then you get good practice, you're probably great at dating, but once again, if you had bad relationships and you try to get into a new one, it's going to the trauma's there, right? It's a lot. It can be a lot harder. And once again, if you really lived in a bubble and then you go into and you try to incorporate things that you don't know, like technology, and you feel uncomfortable there, then there's an added stress. Now, if you go and you say, okay, I'm going to go look for it and I'm just living my life normal, I'm going to Target, I'm going to, you know, Publix, I'm going to the places I normally go, I'm going to the Whitewater Center to go hang out. Like that makes your life. So, what I would say is if you go to look at dating, keep your life as normal as possible, see who you find there, build those connections, as it was stated, and that makes your life a lot easier when it comes to getting over those humps. It's easy, as John said in the thing. It's easier to start dating or getting to know someone from a personal connection, like hey, Chris, Kyle has this friend he wants you to to meet. That connection, that trust helps build that. Also, if you go in a group and you're in that group setting and they're all doing the same stuff, that breaks down that barrier. Now, you going to meet someone by yourself at a bar, it's going to be really awkward, right? So you do the things when you start looking at these situations, the more you can make your interactions more normal for you, the easier it is to connect because you don't have that added stress. So just keep that in mind too. Whether you're going to the same place all the time, whatever it is as an age or as a teenager, go to the same places you're used to and go, hey, that girl's cute or that boy's cute. Let me go talk to them because now you have that, there's less humps to get over, right?
It's a
So I think
lot.
that,
And I'll tell you, I love some of the things you're saying, Neil, and and you guys could both attest. Part of my strategy for how am I going to meet somebody? What do I want to do? I did several things, and I probably should do a show on that in full force. Spend some time on it, but I tried to go with the Robinson dating service. You remember that, Neil?
mm-hmm,
Yeah,
yeah.
I tried to go with the Kyle King dating service. You remember that, Kyle?
Oh yeah.
Right? And I think honestly, y'all don't need to answer this, but I've done that with several people. I told my friends, I was like, "Oh, hey, if you know somebody like I'm interested, just maybe it works, maybe it doesn't." I had a dude that really or kind of had a referral for their dating service, and I talked to the lady. It was great. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there, and then also don't be afraid to kind of be a part of that with your friend because I think people feel very awkward. I mean, talk about being awkward in a dating situation. I think friends and other people also feel awkward. Like I could tell some people were really freaked out and asking me, like, "So how's the dating thing going?" Or "When are you gonna date?" Or "What's that girl like?" Or and then they found out about speed dating, and everybody wanted to know how that went, though. So it's hard. It's hard to put yourself out there and engage the situation. But tune in to Through a Therapist Eyes, episode 354, to kind of get more insights about what you do, how to do it. Because many people enter dating believing you got to perform instead of simply showing up authentically. And I'm going to tease your brains to see. We talked about being authentic on that show, and I want you to hear that. But we'll wrap up on the practical question. Do you approach dating? This is an important distinction. So I want you to think about for a minute if you are new to dating or you need to date or you're thinking about getting out or you're a young person and happen to be listening to this show and you're new to it in life, do you approach this with curiosity or do you approach this with anxiety? And that is a very big distinction between being curious about this person, this process, or being terrified with all of the anxiety that goes into it. And if you're going to try to tell me you don't have anxiety going on a date, I'm going to tell you you're a liar. Okay. Summary closings ups. What you thinks about this topic dating, Kyle? Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Is don't be somebody you're not. If you do that, you're going to set yourself up for failure. In any relationship. Um, make that connection, as we've already talked about. If there's not a connection, don't force it. Is it if you can't make that connection, is no, you're not doing yourself any favors to try to force it because, again, it's just not going to work. But yeah, I think be present when you go out on these dating. Don't be looking at your phone. Don't be doing any of this. Be present. Look somebody in the eye. Have these meaningful conversations. Yeah, don't be like that. Was it the Geico commercial where now we turned into our parents and we're talking about the rubber on our the tires and stuff or whatever, right? Don't be that person. Have meaningful conversations. That's going to move the needle.
So you can't text your date on a date?
No.
Wow. I hope you've never done that if you're listening to the show. But I'm willing to bet somebody has texted their date on a date, Neil. Dear, oh
I've
dear.
read the horror story of the girl who dated her or who texted her friend about the date and accidentally texted the date instead. I don't
Be
remember if it was
careful with
good.
your
I don't remember if it was good
technology.
or bad, but it was one of those things. It's like the guy's like, "What did you just?" Because I think he checked it after she went to the bathroom or something. It was funny. So, but no,
Well, Kyle, I'm sorry, Neil.
it's really interesting because my oldest kid just broke up with his girlfriend that he met in
Oh,
college,
I'm sorry.
and
That
but
sucks.
it's interesting because I've had some interesting conversations about it, and he's like, I feel really more relaxed. I feel like I can be myself because you change yourself as you date, right?
Mm,
And one thing I told him, I said, just remember this feeling because if you don't have this feeling with the next person you start dating, you have to understand is that who you want to be with. And we change as you're in a relationship. You change yourself to match the flow of the person you're with, right? I'm different than I was 20 some odd years ago before I met my wife, but I'm still happy with this relationship and who I've become and who I am. So I told him that. I said, if you're dating someone and it's not the same as you feel now, you don't feel as good about yourself, or you're making a lot of compromising, you're compromising more than they are, you just don't feel the same. Just remember that. So as you go out and you start new dating, think about what the life is now, how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your values and different things, and keep that as a gauge as you meet new people and get in new relationships. So it was an interesting topic we've had this last week, and you know he's moving on, and we'll see what comes from this. So
Neil, you're such an awesome parent. I mean that as a genuine compliment, really and truly.
I try.
Yeah, good stuff. Kyle, I think you and I are going to have some sushi in a little bit. You down?
I'm down. Let's do it.
All right. Listen, have a great week. We love talking to you from through a therapist's eyes, and these month in reviews are really cool times that we could sit down with Kyle and Neil comes out of the curtain. And I just love and appreciate that we could just kind of kick these shows around and make your own sense of them because, this is the human emotional experience, which we do endeavor to figure out together. So take care, stay well. We'll see you guys next week.